Futbol Americas, live and underway here on ESPN alongside Herculez Gomez. I'm Sebastian Salazar. This is episode 508 of this fine program, and we are coming to you live in the aftermath of the United States 2-1 victory over Australia in, not Denver, Commerce City, Colorado.
Where the Buffalo roam.
Yes, the stadium that Herc built, I believe, is what they call DSG
If
Park.
you ever see the stadium and there's a big statue of me outside.
You built the whole state, basically. You're responsible for all of it. Yeah. Lots coming up in this edition of the show. We're going to check the mentions a little bit later on, get some thoughts from social media. We're going to dive into a quote from one of Mauricio Pochettino's assistants that's maybe a little bit confusing. Okay. And time allowing, we will do a little bit of a recap on the U.S. performance at the Under-20 World Cup. The Americans going out in the quarterfinals with the U.S. men's national team. When they conceded the first goal, it's a come-from-behind win at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, 2-1, the final score over Australia. As we take a look at the match stats there, the U.S. with almost 2/3 of possession when it's all said and done. All right, for more on this, let's welcome in a couple of former U.S. national teamers. Of course, our good friend and colleague, Kasey Keller, and new to the Futbol Americas universe, Ale Bedoya. Ale, great to have you with us. I know you're in Philly. I know you got practice in the morning. We appreciate you staying up late. And since you are the guest of honor here, we'll let you start first. Just give me your opening takeaway from the 90 minutes we just saw from the United States against Australia.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and great to see you guys. I thought it was another great exercise. You know, I think overall this window, the U.S. national team can go away with their heads held high. Great exercise for all the guys getting reps and opportunities. This is a different type of opponent than it was previously against Ecuador, right? This is a team that sits back a little bit, is waiting for you to attack them. So the U.S. was able to obviously dominate in possession. Create some chances here and there. I think they struggled a little bit in the opening minutes to get going. You know, it's always tough to try to play against a team that sits back. But overall, I thought there were some definitely standout players that helped their case. You know, I think one for me that stuck out was Roldan. You know, normally typically a guy that we think about his defensive abilities, but he was able to get on the ball and get a couple assists on. You know, obviously the first goal was a great step by Chris Richards, who is definitely captain material for this team. Setting the tone, you know, wins the ball up to Weston McKennie, who was another strong candidate for man of the match. He had a great game as well. Played the ball forward to Roldan and a great ball in behind into space for Haji Wright for a fantastic finish. And then the second goal, again, a heads-up play by Roldan. Haji seeing the space in behind, gets onto it and makes a brilliant play. Herc, you know, as a striker, you love those types of finishes. Cuts it, weak foot, and just places. Just a great striker finish. So we needed to see some of this stuff. I think Pochettino was able to figure out a few answers here as well from some players in this window. So, but tonight was definitely a good test for a team. This is Australia's another team that's, you know, going to be in the World Cup and a type of team that the U.S. men's national team will be seeing. You know, a team that maybe sits back in a low block and so what do you do in possession to try to break teams down? I would have liked to see a little bit more interlinking play. I thought in the beginning there was a little bit of struggle in terms of too many guys checking into the ball. You know, when you're playing with the back three in a build out, I'd like to see one of those outside center back maybe take a little bit more risk to go forward to bring Australia guys out and then maybe find more balls in between the lines in those spaces. But the result, they got 2-1. They won. So I think you know, this window gives a lot of U.S. men's national teams a lot more optimism going forward. So great window.
Yeah, that's the word. I mean, I'm hearing all the talk, and it feels very optimistic. Kirk, we've done a lot of these shows, especially in the Pochettino era, and it's not optimistic afterwards. We've now had 2 games back-to-back where I feel like the post-game shows have been more optimistic. Do you feel like we saw another step in the progression tonight?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. A shocker that when you call in better players, you're going to have a better result. And you look at the players who performed tonight, there are some pretty good performances. Haji Wright, who many would have said, this is Ballo's to begin with. That's his now. Brilliant night. A player who made a mistake in the first half in the opening goal, and Christian Roldan gets redemption with 2 big assists and everything else he did in between the lines. It's a good step forward. But you're finding yourself in World Cup preparation with very good opposition. You just faced an Ecuador, a team who was unbeaten in 11 games, who in World Cup qualifying had 5 goals against, and now you're against Australia, who also will be in the World Cup, and you've given them their first loss in 13 games. You're playing against quality opposition, and you're performing and you're getting results. Against Ecuador, you would have wanted the win. Here, you got the win, but there are moments when the U.S. men's national team shuts off, and that is what's worrisome. We can be as positive as we want, but the goal comes off of a throw-in in your defensive third. And after all this talk of culture beats tactics, can it defend a throw-in? Can culture defend a throw-in? When you talk about culture and what you want to establish, can culture defend your best player on the field when he's getting beat up, when he's getting kicked left and right?
Well, I would have thought that us watching a team go behind at home, come back to win, we would be talking positively about the character of this team.
We are.
You're pointing to moments in this game and questioning it.
I'm pointing to moments in question, yes, because those moments are the ones that are going to eliminate you from a World Cup.
All right, but big picture, they were down and came back.
Brilliant. Big picture, you got scored off a throw-in. Big picture, your best player leaves the field. There's no reaction. So while there are very good individual performances, and I'm gonna hail Mauricio Pochettino on the ability to find a way to win the game, to find a way to bring players in to affect the game, to find a way to rally his team when his best player goes down. We still have to highlight how easy it is to break this team down at times.
Kasey, what did you make of the U.S. performance tonight? Obviously, as Herc says, it's a nice victory, but there are some things maybe to point out from a negative perspective as well.
Yeah, but I mean, I think when you look at the first half an hour, and I was kind of looking at a couple things that I saw in the first match, and I was thinking, okay, where's that combination play in midfield? Ollie alluded to it, where I thought Tillman was very important in that match, and then Balogun making runs in behind. And it was almost like right as I was thinking it in my head, you know, Richards makes the good play, then McKinney combines with Roldan, nice weighted pass through a run in behind, and you got the equalizing goal. So there was moments. I just don't think it was maybe as consistent, but then how can it be as consistent when you're constantly changing, you're constantly bringing in new players, and we keep hearing, the constant that we keep hearing is, are these players that get their chance going to take them? We're not hearing, oh, hey, look how they're building a chemistry together, because nobody's ever playing together enough to build a chemistry. So, okay, maybe that comes February, March, April. Right now, maybe we're still in that let's learn who can do what and who can be together. But overall, you make a big mistake. For sure, of course. Happens every game. You get punished for it. But what's your response? Your response is when Christian goes down, you find a way to get an equalizer. I thought Australia had a great response to the start of the second half. Shots blocked, second shot, good chance, and then you have the heads-up play to get the go-ahead goal. Now I thought they did a really good job of managing the end of the match. Yes, they had that little, okay chance at the end that, I mean, of course, Freeze is going to make that save. But at the same time, Australia wasn't piling on the pressure. They weren't putting the U.S. In fact, it was the other way. The U.S. should have probably got a third goal with the chances they created. Aronson came on, did what he needed to do, and to be that threat going forward. So, far more positives than negatives.
Sense of urgency wasn't there enough from any players, and Roldan will be the first one to tell you he's got to win that 50-50 tackle, right? So the guy doesn't get out of there. So that's a goal that in a critical play that cannot happen. And if it does happen in the World Cup, I mean, you're setting yourself up for failure. So they'll get back to the drawing board about this, but certainly, set pieces are so crucial, especially in this day and age in modern game, and that's just a weak goal to give up.
Why is that throw-in so important to you?
It's not the throw-in per se. It's the one play you switch off that can cost you.
Is it also the fact that, four guys seemed to switch off? It wasn't one guy. It really seemed like 3 or 4 guys
we can't even say
surprised the ball was in
errors.
play.
I mean, every single player was flat-footed and reacted late off a throw-in. Now, when we look at both games, and everybody in this panel is going to say the U.S. men's national was a better team in both games, yet they were down first in both games. And they were down on mistakes that could easily be prevented, that they shut off, that they were naive in. Mauricio Pochettino now does not have the luxury that other coaches going into this World Cup have, of having time with his team, working his team, knowing his lineup. In every single game that we've seen, there's been one, if not two moments, and they've all been capitalized on, where they've paid the ultimate price. I said it. Alejandro just alluded to it again. These are the types of plays that could leave you out of a World Cup against teams that are a tier above what you're used to playing in CONCACAF, but not a tier above the Spains, the Argentinas, the France, the Englands, the big teams, the Portugals of the world that can really, really hurt you. These are the teams that are hurting you. You have to be able to beat one of these teams if you're going to make it out of the group. And they've done good things, but they've also shown you how naive they can be. That's what worries me.
You didn't like the throw in goal. That makes a lot of sense to me. You also said you didn't like the reaction to the treatment of Christian Pulisic by the Australians and the fact that he has to come off.
No, I didn't like the reaction for the U.S. men's national team.
To the treatment that the Australian guys were giving Christian Pulisic. Kasey, did you see anything in that? Obviously, we hate to see Pulisic come off 26, 27 minutes into this game. He was really bright, I thought, for the half hour that he was on the field. What did you make of him getting subbed off and maybe the lack of reaction from this U.S. team to that?
Well, I think the reaction came later. I think early on it was kind of like almost like disbelief.
Off of tackles, and up until that moment, it didn't look like there was a reaction.
Right. Ale, I want to ask you about Pulisic. Not necessarily the fact that he had to come off 26, 27 minutes in today, but maybe the role that he's going to have in this team. Obviously, he is the central point, right? But when we look at the different formations that Mauricio Pochettino has tried to play, today we kind of get, and I know it's a 3-4-3, but it really manifests itself as kind of a 5-2-2-1, and he's a central playmaker. Is that where you like him, Ale? Because we've seen him be so good for club and for country, frankly, playing on the wing. What do you think of Pulisic's more central role that we saw this evening?
Yeah, speaking of him, I think he's absolutely the focal point because he's our best player. He's the USA's best player without a doubt, right? And I think this is his best position. I think this is where he can have that freedom to roam a little bit. I was talking about earlier today about how I would have preferred the three center backs to be left with the ball and not so many guys checking two. But you could see even early on, he was dropping deep to get on the ball. And I think when you can find him in these half spaces, in between the lines, in the middle, and being able to turn, he's quick on the turn and just running at the defenses, that's a nightmare scenario for a lot of teams. So I think this is they got to find a way to get him here. Obviously Balogun for me is the top number 9 that you have to have. And I've seen now the last few games when they're playing together, I think they already have this innate kind of partnership and sync up play that they're looking for each other, and he's looking to play those balls in between the lines to him, to his feet, run off of it, get 1-2s, and run at defenses. And I truly think that this is the best position for him. Now, who's the other 10, right, on the other side playing alongside him? Is it going to be McKinney? Is it going to be Tillman? Is it going to be Weah? Is it who? I don't know. That player, I think, is still Pochettino's still looking for that answer. But certainly, for me at least, this is his best position. I don't really want him out wide against the line on the line all the time, but I think centrally is where for the U.S. is where he's going to be the most effective for the national team.
So we only got to see it for like half an hour, but as soon as the lineup came out, the first thing you said is you wanted to see what Pulisic and Weah on the same side looked like. Was it as dangerous in that half hour as you thought it would be or hoped it would be?
No.
Do you want them on the same side generally?
I want.
Go back to the last World Cup. They were on the opposite sides, kind of spearheading that attack.
And there could be casualties because of this system. Ali's talking about where Christian Pulisic could play. Well, in this system, he can only play there. That's the only place he can play. It's in one of those double 10s because the width is going to be provided from your left wing back or your right wing back. The wingers are essentially gone. They're 2 10s. They're double 10s. They're playmakers. So that's the only place Christian Pulisic is going to play. Christian Pulisic is so talented and has a high IQ, not only in the final third, but everywhere on the field, that he's produced that Milan playing on the right when that's not been his natural position. When he was playing on the left, he's produced as well. He's produced as a 10, and now he's producing as a double 9 in the new system with Maxi Allegri. He's a player that understands the nuance of different positions. But in this formation, the only place he can play is there. That other number 10 is going to be up in the air. I don't think it's a Weston McKennie. I think you need somebody with more of a natural playmaking ability there.
You don't think it's a Weston McKennie, but Weston McKennie started both the games in this window at that spot.
I thought he was quiet. I thought he was quiet in both.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you look today, the deep line playmaker, well, I shouldn't even say playmaker, the deep line midfielder
Roldan.
was Christian Roldan and had 2 assists in the game.
Yeah.
And Weston McKennie, his best attributes are arriving late. So without getting too much into nuances, there are positions here that I think are catered more to certain players. And Christian Pulisic, who we're talking about right now, that double 10 position will be one of those positions that's catered to him.
So enough about Christian Pulisic. The dude only played half an hour tonight. I think this is going to go down as Haji Wright's game 2.0, because we remember the CONCACAF Nations League, obviously against Jamaica, where he scored a brace. He gets a brace here today, Kasey. We talk about this number 9 position all the time. And actually, when the lineup came out, I will admit, I was a little bit disappointed because I wanted to see Balogun again. I thought Balogun had been so good, and this has been a question that has lingered for so long. If you let Balogun go out there, run again, and he scores 2, he's your guy moving forward. He's given Haji Wright this opportunity. Haji Wright has definitely made the most of it, Kasey. Are we now right back to where we were a month or 2 ago, where we really have no idea who the starting 9 is for this group?
I don't know if we have no idea, but I think it's a good problem to have at this stage. I mean, Haji Wright is on a tear at the moment for club, and then you get an opportunity to come in with the national team, and what do? You bang 2 goals in. I mean, what a great problem to have. Yes, I agree with you. I thought Balogun has done an excellent job over the last couple matches. Same thing. You know, he'd been kind of in the wilderness, the opening goal. So, yeah, it's a good problem, but it's still, the door's open. And I think from everything we've read, that's exactly what Pochettino wants. He wants this wide open door for everybody. Well, Haji kicked it open, that's for sure.
Ale, what do you think? Haji or Balogun? Next game, who you going with if you're in Mauricio Pochettino's shoes?
If I'm in his shoes, I'm picking Balogun. I think he provides a little bit more physicality and hold-up play, better hold-up play, and I think I rate him higher than Haji Wright. But Haji Wright answered the call today. Credit to him. And like Kasey alluded to, this is a great problem to have, and Coach loves having this problem because that means they're competing and they're going to make each other better, and it's going to make the team better.
The goals tonight, both of them, Herc, so good, like in totally different ways, but I just thought really fantastic finishes.
The first finish from Haji Wright, and Kasey can speak on this, reminded me of Romario, and Romario was just so deft with this finish with this toe poke like that, and it's so difficult and deceiving for a goalkeeper because he doesn't set himself up or open the hip in any way to give the goalkeeper a hint of where he's going, and he puts it in the only place he can put it. It's a great, very well-weighted pass by Christian Roldan, but the goal itself, the finish, really did it for me. And then the second one, he knew exactly when he was going to cut it to his weaker foot. And I'm doing quotations right now because it was a hella finish with the left foot. I'm convinced that in Mauricio Pochettino's system, if this is the system, everywhere that we've seen, he's eliminating the wingers. He's going to go with a profile player, 9, that has to be able to run the line by himself, fight for himself, create for himself. And I think he's got 3 profile players that in some hybrid fashion can do that for themselves. Haji Wright's one of those players. He's going to be on that list. I'm not so sure that we can pencil in Balo as the guy because Mauricio Pochettino wants his guys fighting week in, week out, and he's had his moments in Monaco where he's not playing. He's had his moments in Monaco where he's on droughts.
What matters more to Pochettino in that evaluation? What's happening at Monaco or what he sees in the camps and with the national team in the games?
I firmly believe when it comes to the 9 position,
hot hand.
It's hot hand. It's hot hand. And if you've got a Haji Wright who's tearing it up, if you have...
but what about what Ale says? And I agree with this.
A Balogun
that Balogun-Pulisic connection is something special to behold.
Yeah, but do
you want to lose that?
We've seen the Christian
Haji give you that?
Haji connection. They've been doing it since they were 16 years old. We've seen this. We know how much they enjoy playing with each other because that's what Christian Pulisic has told us. I very much liked the Balo connection. But I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment because the Balo Christian Pulisic connection has been all of 2 games. There was a world before that where it was non-existent. So with the 9 position, I firmly feel it's not only hot hand, but it's health, that we've seen as a major issue with this team. And what have you done for me lately with the national team? Because Ricardo Pepi was the what have you done with lately with the national team, and probably has the best goal to game or minute ratio of all the forwards from Mauricio Pochettino. And he's on the outside looking in right now.
So if I say Ballo 1, Haji 1A or 2 coming out of this window, is Ajimang ahead of Pepi for you?
I don't.
Like, if
rate
Pepi's
Ajimang.
healthy,
I don't
think-
rate Ajimang
okay.
ahead of Pepi. But here's the thing: we have to be brutally honest with where the U.S. men's national team is at today. We don't know what Serginho Dest is going to be like. We don't know what Anthony Robinson is going to be like. We don't know what Ricardo Pepi is going to be like. These players need to prove their fitness. We hope they get back to their ceiling. We hope they get back to their level. But we are hoping.
What about Josh Sargent? Is it over for him?
I don't think it's over, but he's definitely nowhere near the picture right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a crazy fall off for a guy who you for a long time have said
Yeah.
was the most talented guy in the pool.
Maintained it. And he scored, and every season in his league, he would prove me right. But when it comes to the national team, there's only so many times we can keep making excuses for him for whatever reason. And people could say opportunity, people could say bad luck, whatever the case may be. He just wasn't putting the ball in the back of the net.
Yep.
While other forwards were.
All right, man, there's a million kind of ways we could go. I'm still just looking at the 11 guys we could talk about. I feel like we have to talk about the goalie situation when we've got an iconic goalie here on the show with us. And I really thought that if there was ever a moment, Kasey, where we might see Matt Turner, right? Like, in the way that Pochettino seems to be willing to experiment at other positions, the 9, wing back, whatever it may be, he's trying different things. He is not trying anything different in goal. It's freeze, 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 freeze. What did you make of the fact that Turner, again, didn't see the field tonight and it was freeze in goal for the U.S., Kasey?
Yeah, I was very surprised because, I mean, I think if you take Pochettino's own words and supposedly what he said to Matt Turner is you need to be playing, and I don't really care if you're playing in MLS or playing in Europe. I just need you playing. So you know, Matt Turner comes home and he's playing well for New England, and if you are going to get that opportunity, you would assumed it would have been in this match. If Freeze was playing lights out and just saving everything, okay, I get it. But look, you've heard me talk about Matt Freeze. Matt Freeze is done fine. Getting some games under his belt and say to him, hey, guess what? I'm back. I've gotten rid of the rust. I can perform again at the level you need me to perform at. Let me prove it. And instead, where he's kind of said to so many other players, yeah, I don't want you to have any comfort. I'm not even going to talk to you. Don't expect me to call you if you're called in, if you're not called in, whatever else. But for whatever reason right now with Matt Freeze, that doesn't apply, which, look, I don't really care, but I just haven't seen the performances in Matt Freeze to say, yes, competition's done. That's my guy.
What's the difference between Matt Freeze and Matt Turner stylistically? Honestly, is there much of a difference stylistically, Kasey here, Ale? Because if there's not,
I guess the one thing I would say is what I've seen in the past from Matt Turner is he's been able to make the bigger save on the occasion more than I've seen Matt Freeze.
Correct.
That's it.
But he's
now Matt Turner's made some mistakes, but he also made some mistakes because we were talking about he's not playing week in and week out. And so what I'd like to see is that opportunity to say, can you make the big save? Avoid the mistakes now that you are playing week in and week out. And if the mistake's still there, well, then there's your answer. But we don't know because he hasn't gotten the opportunity.
So if stylistically they're not too different, I'm going with whoever I think has more confidence. And if you look at the Summer Series, the games and Gold Cup in question, well, Matt Turner made more mistakes in the limited time he played during the Summer Series than Matt Freeze playing the whole Gold Cup. And there was a blunder from Matt Freeze.
Different levels of competition.
And there was a blunder from Matt Freeze in the goal. But what I'm trying to get at here is if stylistically it's not too different, I can see Mauricio Pochettino saying, at some point in time, if I feel it's got to be Matt Freese, I got to get him a lot of reps. I got to make him
Why not apply that to the number 9 position or any of these other positions?
Because he feels he has competition there. Maybe he doesn't feel there's competition with Matt Freese.
Wow, that's an indictment of Matt Turner, a guy who was your starter at the last World Cup, if you don't think he can provide competition for Matt Freese. Ale, it's been a position of dominance for the U.S. men's national team for so many years. What do you make right now of the current USMNT goalkeeping situation?
Yeah, it has been a position of confidence, and we got one of the all-time greats right here on with us. But I think Matt Freese, you know, I can be a little bit biased here. Obviously, he's a former teammate, but he's just Mr. Steady Eddie to me. You know, I think he's a guy that you can confide in. He breeds confidence in the defense and on the team. And I don't always get. We don't always get to hear what's happening on the field, right? Because a big part of a goalkeeper's role is also communication. And so how do the players feel around with him, shouting certain directions? How is he in terms of shifting the back line and putting players in good positions to be successful and seeing the play out of the back where he can see the whole field, right? I think those are important attributes as well that sometimes we don't all take into account. But I do have to agree with Herc a little bit here in terms of the confidence issue. I do think he comes in with a little bit more confidence. I think his, New York City FC and MLS play has had a very successful season thus far, and it's a big credit to his playing goal, right? So how much does Poch take that into account in terms of league play and setting the tone there? And then we also don't see what's happening in training, at least not as much as we should. But I think, how is he, doing in the training sessions and in the games that they're playing there? And I think he's just been able to do enough, like Kasey says, to hold that job. It's his to lose at this point, right? I don't think he's made some major mishaps. I mean, they're going to happen if you're a goalkeeper, right? You get blamed for everything. But I think he's held his own, and he's shown that he's a great shot stopper. He can command the box and come up with saves when needed. And the players, have confidence in him.
Herc, do you think it's the biggest question mark around this team, or is it another question for Pochettino, like formation? What to do with it? I feel like with the 9, you now have 2 very good options.
Well, in terms of
hot options, maybe is the better way.
No, I don't think it's the biggest question. I think the biggest question for pundits and reporters and fans will be what the actual World Cup team will be.
That 11. Do you think we got a pretty good look at it tonight? At least in terms of formation?
No. In terms of formation, maybe, but in terms of personnel, I don't think we saw the 11 tonight.
I'm thinking about it, Serginho Dest, when he comes back, is he a starter in this team?
Well, I would assume he's a starter in this team. But I also have seen Serginho Dest come in and out of lineups, especially U.S. men's national team camps, because he doesn't feel fully fit. What Serginho Dest are you getting here?
So if it's not Dest, who are you missing? Anthony Robinson is sliding in there for sure at some point, probably Tyler Adams as well.
Anthony Robinson is another question mark. He's got a knee injury. We've not seen the best of him at Fulham. He's barely played. And he's not in another U.S. men's national team, roster. That's worrisome. Tim Ream, every day is a day older. Mm-hmm. Can he make it, to the summer? Can he still be the player you need him to be without having to move pieces to protect them? Tyler Adams, can he stay healthy? That's always been a big question mark. Christian Pulisic, he's banged up right now. And if you followed Christian Pulisic every summer, he's got a stint where his body breaks down on him. You got to keep him healthy. What's he going to be like coming to? Who's the 9 position? Like, there's so many different questions here. My biggest question is what this team's going to look like come next summer.
All right, Kasey, if we take a look at not just the 90 minutes we saw against Australia, but really the 180 minutes that we witnessed during this international window, what is kind of your most important takeaway now, 9 months, 8 months from the start of the 2026 World Cup, based on what we just saw in these 2 games against Ecuador first and then Australia?
Well, I think we're finally starting to see a little bit of grit, a little bit of that chip on the shoulder that we're used to the U.S. national team having forever. We're not having to talk about, do they care? Do they want to be here? Do they want to be in camp? No, that looks like it's to bed. It looks like now guys know when they come in that they're in and they're locked in. And To me, that is a huge relief that I don't have to be talking about that anymore. That it looks like we've got a group of guys now that look like they want to fight for something, and that is great to see.
Ale, you agree with Kasey? You feel like the U.S. has turned a corner over these last couple games?
Yes, I have to agree with her. Just because the whole thing about the conversation that was had about the national team is, do they want it enough? Do they have the grittiness in them and the resilience and toughness to compete every single game, no matter if it's a friendly or competition? So that's out of the question for sure. Now it's who's going to be the personnel. I know you guys were talking about it earlier. Who's the starting 11? I mean, if fully fit, everybody's fully fit. I think, of course, Robinson is in, Dest is in. I think maybe even Ream still has a Mark in there, just because Mark did a steady job tonight. But I still think if you have a left-footed sided center back player, that makes a huge difference to have a left-footed player on that side of things.
You agree with that? It's hard to overlook the goal scorers, right?
That's why they're the money makers. That's why they get the attention. It's a good problem to have if you can keep it going.
Is that the biggest thing to come out of this window?
No, I don't think so, because the U.S. men's national team has had goal scorers before, and we've always had the conversation of who's the nine, who's going to be the nine, who's going to be the nine. You have to get there and you have to produce. I think the biggest takeaway here is Poch figuring out what works for him. Mm-hmm. For the first time, I think pundits, fans, everybody watching can say, okay, Pochettino's going to play 3 center backs. Pochettino's going to play with these wing backs. Pochettino likes doing this in the second half. Pochettino's already looking like he relies more on these. We're starting to get defined roles under Mauricio Pochettino's system, and we're starting to see a Mauricio Pochettino who's starting to push the right buttons, because it's very easy for us to sit here and nitpick the throw and nitpick the transition play against Ecuador, but they beat Ecuador, who was on a...
Tied Ecuador.
Excuse me, they tied Ecuador, thank you, who was on a 11-game winning streak, who had only allowed...
Unbeaten, right? Yeah.
Yes, unbeaten.
Yeah. Sorry. You'll get it right.
Working with you does to me. See what working you does to me?
Yes.
So they're playing against Ecuador team who allowed 5 goals in World Cup qualifying, and you had 3 or 4 quality chances. We said it. If not for Fowler and Ballack, and the best player in that game was Galindez, who's the goalkeeper of Ecuador. You come against Australia, another team who had been unbeaten in the last 12 games. And you hand them their first loss in 13 games. You're doing good things at the right moment. That, to me, is the most important thing, the finding of ways for Mauricio Pochettino.
There you have it. The U.S. turning a corner in this international window, first with a 1-1 draw against Ecuador in Austin, and then with a 2-1 victory earlier tonight against Australia at Dick's Sporting Goods Park in Colorado. Of course, we'll be talking much more about this game on the next edition of ESPN FC, a show available for you daily right here on ESPN+. All right, Herc, let's dive into some interesting comments here from Jesus Perez. He is one of the assistant coaches for Mauricio Pochettino, and he said this in an interview with Goal.com, talking about the U.S. team that he, Pochettino, and the rest of the staff inherited. Quote, I think it is well known that the previous regime was based on a small group of players. They relied on them, and they thought that the more together they were, the better they will get. We felt like we didn't agree with that, and we wanted to provide the same level of care to everyone in terms of tracking, analysis, and visiting. Perez would continue. For us, it was important to visit club by club and speak to the coaches. It doesn't matter what this group of players has done in the past. This is like a club. What you did yesterday, it builds you a little bit of credit, sure, but the next game and the next game and the game after that, that will increase or reduce your credit. Kasey, I will come to you first on this one. What do you make of the comments there from Jesus Perez?
I'd like to see some statistics on. I thought Greg brought in a ton of people when he first. He gave away a ton of first caps.
Oh yeah.
When he first got the job, I mean, absolute ton. I guess maybe the difference is Greg maybe just was able to make decisions quicker. Was able to just say yes, no, yes, 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 no, 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 and then be like, okay, cool. Now do something spectacular to give yourself an opportunity to break into the club. Look, there's been a lot of stuff that have come out of this year-long tenure with Pochettino and his squad that has really left me scratching my head. You know, I've been around the block a little bit. different countries, different managers, different nationalities, throughout national team, you name it. And there's definitely a lot of things that I've seen from Pochettino in this year that left me like, that's a new one. Now, in the end, there's no right way or wrong way to get results, but you have to get the results. And the reason why we've been critical of Pochettino isn't because he's done something different. It's because he's done something different and hasn't gotten the results. Now we're starting to see some of the results come. Okay, this is what matters in the end. But yeah, I mean, they definitely do some things a different way, and more power to them. But in the end, it's going to come down to 3 matches in the World Cup. That's where the judgment's going to come.
Herc, help me translate this a little here, or help me understand if I have the translation right. I hear him saying this, and to me it sounds like there wasn't a lot of competition prior, especially for kind of the top players in this pool. And what we've done is we've created competition by truly opening this up to everybody. If I take that thought, and then I look at what you guys have just been talking about for the last 40 minutes, hey, this team was way more competitive in this window than what we've seen. Hasn't Mauricio Pochettino achieved what he needed to achieve, which was whatever funk this team was in under Greg Berhalter, he's thrown a bunch of new pieces in, he's made everybody very nervous about their spot, and now we have a real hardcore competition, which eventually leads out onto the field. It bleeds out onto the field, and you see it in these games, and we're no longer questioning whether the U.S. team is disinterested. Do they really want to be here?
I don't take stock into this window on that being evidence to what you're saying. I have no issue with what the coaching staff is saying here. I empower every coaching staff to make their team their own. What worked for Greg Berhalter and his leadership council and the power concentrated within a very small group is clearly not what works for Mauricio Pochettino and his team. I see this, and I think you're going about the same vein. There was a lot of power that certain players had under Greg Berhalter. Newsflash, water is wet. Greg Berhalter comes back to the U.S. men's national team because who wanted him back?
Players.
The players wanted him back. I have no issue with Mauricio Pochettino wanting to break that up, wanting to be in an open competition and start anew. I have no issue with that at all. I do kind of take the issue of the airing out of the laundry. This is what happened.
The old former regime.
This is what happened.
Yeah.
The former regime was letting these guys run the show. We don't roll like that.
Right.
That's the issue I take here.
Ale, what do you make of not just what we see here from Perez and kind of what he's talking about, but maybe at the core of the quote, this idea that the national team had in some way lost its competitive edge, maybe because those top players weren't being pushed for their spots under Berhalter. Do you agree with what is at kind of the heart of what he's saying here?
I think I do a little bit, yeah, to be fair. I think maybe this was a shot at that old leadership council and the small group of players that made up that group, right? I think this is Jesus Perez's way of, saying what Pochettino and them have been talking behind closed doors. It's like, no, we're going to shake things up, all right? We are the bosses here. We decide who's coming in, who's not coming in, and what's going to be like in training, the sessions are going to be like, what dinner's going to be like, what, during the Gold Cup, how that environment that's being created, you don't come here expecting to play golf on days off, or Herc can remember some days when we were back in the days, the things that we were able to do on during our free time. No, they took it
Steady,
to a whole
steady. Don't get anybody in trouble, Ale.
What's up, Coach?
Oh, that is my point. He's trying to create a different type of culture, right? I don't necessarily agree with why he had to come out with this quote, because you don't want to allude to the past. The past
Exactly.
is the past. Let that go.
Yeah.
You're coming in. What you're doing is working, or it's gonna work. Trust the whole process type of thing. We see it kind of bear fruit a little bit here and there, but just let the results do the talking. I think is where we got to leave it at. But I do agree, Seb, with the premise of this conversation was that maybe the old guard or some of the guys that were the part of the core group got a little bit too comfortable, right? And they're here to shake things up, to make sure, no, you guys are going to feel uncomfortable, because that's how we're going to be able to compete, and that's how we're going to make each other better, and in turn, the team is going to be better.
All right, so we had some interesting comments there from Mauricio Pochettino's assistant, Jesus Perez.
I've never gotten confirmation with Weston McKennie that there's a disciplinary issue. I always give Weston McKennie.
Well, I mean, you go back to the World Cup qualifiers.
Correct.
We do have
There
confirmation.
was. Yeah, no, well.
I mean, he left the hotel room during COVID, risked the teams. I mean, come on.
Who got in trouble in that one?
What do you mean, who got in trouble?
Who got in trouble in that one?
McKennie did.
Yeah, one player.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, but he got in trouble.
No,
it
you're
happened
right.
at Juventus too. I mean,
yeah, but what I'm trying to say is there's that low-hanging fruit about the disciplinary issues with Weston McKennie. And here he talks about come in and follow the rules. And there was a Weston McKennie exclusion for a while. There are some players who are excluded who have not been in or around the national team for quite some time. And I think we're now getting insight as to why. Weston McKennie right now, whether that discipline was fitness issues or it was you didn't follow a rule, and it could be as simple of a rule as no golf or you show up on time, or as big of a rule as you broke, in that time, I think Weston was COVID protocol and left the hotel room. It doesn't matter. You broke a rule. So I understand them sticking to their guns when it comes to abiding by the rules. But it almost leads you to believe that there's, okay, you're enforcing and policing here, you're not there. Because when Christian Pulisic decided not to come to the U.S. men's national team in the summer, along with Yunus Musa, he's back.
Right.
Where's Yunus Musa? When there was a rule broken
but I mean, isn't that
we think
professional
of
sports?
with Weston McKennie?
Isn't that professional sports? Your superstars have different rules than your everyday guys.
I mean, here's the thing, though.
I'm suggesting that. You may say at a national team level that doesn't work. You need to, I'm just.
I think there are. You're right. There are hierarchies everywhere. But why preach that we treat everybody the same?
Right.
Why is it that all we hear from Mauricio Pochettino is we treat every player the same, verbatim? We treat every player the same. So is it good for the goose but not for the gander? Is that what we're talking about here?
Kasey, I hear you chuckling. What are you laughing about?
Well, yeah, because never in a million years is everybody treated the same. It just doesn't exist. And it never should exist because everybody's a different individual and everybody has their own little things. And everybody, some people are replaceable and some people aren't. And, you're still in a results game. I mean, you still got to win games. You still need your best players. And I think Pochettino's finding out a little bit the hard way. With the national team, yeah, you can open up the squad, but Herc, you alluded to it multiple times in this broadcast alone. It's amazing what happens when the better players are in that you get better results. So there's still a point when what you have to do is, as a coach, with as much experience as Pochettino, because I'm sure Messi never had any kind of special treatment at PSG under Pochettino. He was treated just like everybody else. No, of course not. Messi did whatever the heck he wanted to do at PSG, and Pochettino could do nothing about it. So in this situation, he's starting to realize that what I need to do is have points. I need Weston McKennie. I need to make points with Weston McKennie and say, Weston, this is what I need from you. Can you do that? And I think what we're starting to see is the fruition of that. You're starting to see players now come back into the team and be maybe that little bit more productive. But if you're one of those not quite to the level of Christian Pulisic or Weston McKennie, and you don't quite get to the result, then we can find somebody else.
It's interesting you say the level of Christian Pulisic and Weston McKennie. Admitting I will agree that those are two of the better players in the team, but for me, even between those two, there's like a significant gap. We know Christian Pulisic, no matter what, is going to be a starter and the focal point of this team. Ale, do you see a space in which Weston McKennie is not a starter on this U.S. team come the next World Cup? Or is he a guaranteed guy in the 11 for you?
As it stands right now, I think he could be a lock in the 11, yes. And to your guys' point, the better the talent, the longer the leash. It's going to always be like that in pro sports, as long as the results are on the line. And, I think he's a personality as much as, much as I know him, he's a guy that all the players always love, making jokes, playing music, dancing, very lively fella. So, and as long as he keeps performing on the field, he's going to be there. But of course, look, Pochettino comes in and he wants to set the record straight and make sure everybody understands how he rolls and his coaching staff roles, and players got to abide by that. And if he's got to set certain examples to make sure that culture, is set, well, he's going to make sure it happens. And I think that's a scenario where it did happen. And he's, says it in the media to the press just to continue to make sure that everybody's falling in line and make sure that, you got to watch yourself. The players got to make sure they perform on the field, but also off the field. And everybody's taking care of their own business. But I think for me, McKennie is a lock starter. And I believe it's going to be beside Tyler Adams as a 6, not as a 10.
What do you think? You agree with that?
If it were up to me, Weston McKennie would be my 11, absolutely. In this formation, I think Weston McKennie could be a casualty of the system. You want another pivot that's going to be disciplined alongside Tyler Adams. I don't think Weston McKennie has that discipline, which is why I think he's trying him out in this dual 10. Because we've seen him play for Copa Minors in Juventus, and we've seen him have some success at the Champions League level, but that's not his best trait. He needs to arrive late. He needs to come to the box arriving late. He needs to get on the end of things. He needs to be his usual self. Role? I don't think he has the discipline to do it. And I think Mauricio Pochettino sees that. And this is why, along with Weston McKennie, a guy like, who I think has been very important to the program, in Timothy Weah, could find himself on the outside looking in. Because if you have a healthy Anthony Robinson, if you have a healthy Serginho Dest, where does a wide player fit in that system like Timothy Weah?
So we know it's going to be Pulisic as one of those 10s. Who are the other guys in that conversation?
Malik Tillman.
A Luna, a Tillman, and a McKennie, basically, right? How would you rank those guys to go with Pulisic?
Brendan Aronson would be in there
I think
as
Brendan
well.
Aronson is pretty far down that list, right? I mean, just based on where we've seen him, he was a wing-back tonight.
Well, not late in the game.
Who do you think pairs best with Pulisic there? That's a huge
Malik
decision.
Tillman. I think
Tillman,
Malik Tillman.
really?
Yes, absolutely. I think Malik Tillman, I think we saw in the first game the way he was able to combine with Fuller and Balogun and Christian Pulisic. They look very natural, very dynamic, a lot of IQ in that system or in that final third with those 3 players. That would be who I would pair up with Christian Pulisic.
Interesting. Speaking of Christian Pulisic, this just in from Mauricio Pochettino. He is saying that the injury is a hamstring. Tomorrow he will fly to Italy. Tonight we will assess. We cannot say anything more at the moment, end quote. That's from Mauricio Pochettino post-game, speaking on the injury to Christian Pulisic. If we get any more news on that, I'm sure they'll be covering it on the next edition of the Gab and Jules show. Of course, Gab and Jules gather twice a week to discuss all things world football. I'm sure they'll be talking about all the latest teams to qualify for the 2026 World Cup. Should be another exciting episode. Morocco by a final score of 3-1. They were not the only CONCACAF nation to be eliminated in the last 8 as Mexico fell to Argentina.
Is that France?
2-0. And here we go. There's the semifinals set for October 15th. Argentina against Colombia and Morocco against France. All right. Obviously U20 World Cup, maybe not our main area of focus. Thoughts on what the boys did down there?
I thought it was an unfortunate way to go out for the U.S. youth national team, who controlled for large portions of this game. What I thought was a very different Morocco squad than we'd seen against Mexico, that we'd seen against Brazil, that we'd seen against Spain, who gave the initiative to the United States and really took them by surprise. I thought play was positive, but the goals you give up. And if you look at who's in that semifinal, a team that you beat 3-0 in France, they're going to be kicking themselves.
Kasey, I know you're part of the goalie union. You don't want to criticize these guys too much. They are just kids. But, man, you got to think if the U.S. might have had a Diego Coach in goal, this might have been a little bit different, no?
Well, but there's even more to it than that. So Gavin Beavers, the former Real Salt Lake, who got bought by Brøndby, was always considered the number 2. So when coaching got called up, Brøndby then said, yeah, we'll release him to go down and play in the under-20s. So with all the craziness with the strikes of air traffic in France, it takes him a couple days to get down to the Youth World Cup. And then after Brøndby releases him, your clear number 2 doesn't play for the whole tournament. Your number 3 makes a couple mistakes in the game when you're put under pressure, and you get bounced when you shouldn't have.
Ale, that's the 5th straight quarterfinal appearance for the U.S. at the under-20s. Does it matter?
Does it matter in the long run? I'm not so sure. I think, it's tough for me to always judge the U20s because clubs are not obligated to release their the best players, really. So, I mean, it's hard to judge it on that premise alone. However, yeah, it's disappointing for the U.S. to exit, as Kasey alluded to. The team who's in the semifinals, the U.S. beat 3-0, and they're going to be kicking themselves because this is Morocco team was there for the taking. They sat a little bit back. They're a little bit hard to play against in the low block again. The U.S. started on a front foot. They played pretty well, but look, it's hard to knock on a young player, but I think the goalie, has a lot to blame for I think for all 3 goals. I think he wasn't really commanding his box as he should have. The 3rd goal shouldn't have come out, and I think the U.S. still had a solid chance to come back into the game, but that 3rd goal was just a killer. However, look, I think it's disappointing for them to definitely be out. I saw this team after the way they beat France earlier, possibly making a run in the final. Even chatting with Frankie Westfield, who I think had a really solid tournament. He felt pretty confident about their chances as well. So, chance not taken here against a Morocco team that was there for the taking.
Man, Morocco. Whatever they're doing, keep doing it. Knock the U.S. out of the Olympics and now here at the Under-20 World Cup.
Seb, I got a question for you.
Yes, go on.
You said, was it 5 straight quarterfinals?
5 straight, yes. 5 straight quarterfinal eliminations for the U.S. at the Under-20s.
Has the U20s ever made it to a semifinal?
Yes, 1989, a young Kasey Keller was in goal. Hey-oh! Come on, don't test me. Of all the nerds, I'm the biggest one. So.
Lyle Yorks was the best player on that.
Steady. Yeah. It's probably the richest out of all those guys. All right, time to check the mentions. Let's see what the internet has to say about tonight's game between the United States and Australia. Start off with Footy Yanks. Love that one. Are you as concerned as I am about the center back play? It's not good enough, in my opinion. Herc, you want to take aim at the center backs, who tonight were Mark McKenzie in for Tim Ream, along with Chris Richards and Miles Robinson.
Oh, we've seen all the center backs not be good at some point for the U.S. men's national team's position of when you're put under pressure, you can get beat. You have one center back right now. It's Chris Richards. And everybody else falls in line of 2, 3, 4, and that 2 spot is Tim Ream. So yeah, I'm a little worried about the center backs because they're unproven. I'm a little worried about the center backs because they're a little long in the tooth. But like Ronald Koeman says, it's what you got.
All right, Natum's interior decorator fires up our next question for Ale. The most underrated player you've played with at club level and with the U.S. men's national team. Most underrated.
Most underrated at club level. Wow. That's a tough one. I think I would have to go with, at one point, it was Filip Djordjevic when I played at FC Nantes. He was a striker. He ended up going to Lazio, so I guess maybe not as underrated, but I just think he had the possibility to make it to an even bigger club. Things didn't really work out his way. But with the U.S. men's national team, clearly, I think I'd have to say Darlington Nagbe. As much as fans loathe that he didn't participate more for the U.S. team, but this guy, I think he could have been playing for several type of big clubs all across Europe. The way he just makes it look so easy, protects the ball, doesn't lose it, and just has this natural ability that is incredible.
Just announced his upcoming retirement too. Congratulations on a wonderful career. Yeah, first touch, fantastic. Kasey,
Out of everything.
Yeah. If you're Ricardo Pepi, how concerned are you about the possibility of missing a second straight World Cup? Of course, Ricardo Pepi not on the team in Qatar either.
Yeah. Look, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. The national team, you never dictate your play based on the national team. You go have the best club season you can possibly have, and then if the national team falls into place, it falls into place. So all I want Ricardo Pepi to do is really work on his fitness, work on his form, have a great second half of the season, and if the World Cup's great and that falls into place, then fantastic. You're still young. There's still more time. Have a great, long club career, and the national team will follow.
I got to think, unless he's injured, he's not missing the World Cup on a manager's choice.
Missed one on a manager's choice already.
Right, but I think this version of Ricardo Pepi is different. This national team pool is different.
If all
To me, he could start for this team.
If all four, these four players, these 4 nines, Folarin Balogun, Haji Wright, Patrick Achiman, and Ricardo Pepi are scoring goals, who do you think, which 3 do you think make the team?
Why only take 3?
I think he's only going to take 3, and my worry is he's going to take the different profile player, and he could take Patrick Achiman. The first goal Patrick Achiman scores in the championship is literally him dunking on 2 guys. It's just a different profile. I just have a feeling that's what Pochettino's looking at.
Real quick here. What percentage chance would you give Joe Scally to be called up to the next international window? Oh, I think you're going to say 0. 0.0.
I really don't understand this. If there's one player who's been consistent, and you can say what you want out of his play or anybody's play under the U.S. men's national team, but one player who's been consistent in playing time in the top 5 league in this pool, it's been Joe Scally. He's probably got logged in the most minutes. So I'm at a loss for words of why he's not anywhere near this.
Yeah, by the way, I don't say 0.0 percentage because of Joe Scally.
Correct.
I say it because I don't think Pochettino rates him, likes him, whatever that is there. All right, last question from Eric for Ale. What do you all do to pass the time on long-haul flights?
Oh, long-haul flights? Yeah, I mean, tech helps, you know. You got your iPads, download movies. I like to play Sudoku. I have, of course, because I have 2 kids, they download, a bunch of games. So I even try to beat their high records of their games. And sometimes, with some of the work I'm doing in between, the front office role that I kind of got, I'll be pulling out some Excel and PowerPoint presentations, working on different things like that.
Look at Ale.
You say front office roles?
I'm saying, I don't know, man. I thought he was coming for your job or my job. He's coming for somebody else's job, so we don't have to be too worried about it for now. Ale, man, great to have you with us here on this edition of Futbol Americas. Thanks so much for the time. You're a great addition to the show, and hopefully we can do it again soon. Ale Bedoya of the Philadelphia Union. Hopefully he'll be back with us sometime soon. Kasey Keller, we know that you will be back with us sometime soon. And Herculez Gomez, as always, the pleasure was all on this side of the table in doing another wonderful edition of Futbol Americas with you. The U.S. Beats Australia in Denver 2-1. The first come-from-behind victory in the Mauricio Pochettino era. For Kasey Keller, Ale Bedoya, Herculez Gomez, I'm Sebastian Salazar. Thank you so much for watching this edition of Futbol Americas.
That John
We'll see you right back here Thursday.